Welcome to Senior Moments. This is a show that focuses attention on outstanding individuals, seniors in fact, that have given so much of their life back to their communities. I'm Lorraine Wickman, your host. I work at Mount Wachusett Community College. I run a program called Life, which focuses on seniors 50 and over. Today's guest is John Glebaucis, all the way from Laguna, California. Hi, John, and
Hi,
welcome.
Lorraine. Thanks
Nice
for inviting
to have
me.
you.
Thanks for inviting me. This is wonderful. I love this idea.
Well, one of the reasons I was thrilled about asking you to come was I wanted to find out from you how you could live in New England for so many years and then suddenly be taken away to sunny California. How did you do that?
Well, it wasn't easy, really. We prayed about it. My wife and I prayed about, when I retire, let's make a change. Let's downsize. That was our expression. Let's downsize. And maybe our cellar was loaded. Our cellar was storage for 6 kids, and the things that we had saved all my life. We just decided we were going to move down to Heritage Village or get a small house in Gardner. And when we went down there and looked at a trailer and thought about it and looked at a few homes that we thought of buying that were for sale, that were in our price range, my daughter from California called and says, did you find what you like to do and move or whatever? And we says, not really. And so she says, well, maybe you'd like to move out to California. And we says, gee, that, because we had been out there to visit many times.
Yes.
We were out there, and the weather was always like...
so this was not a shot in the dark.
No, this was not a shot in the dark. This was, the weather was always gorgeous. So we says, I didn't like the idea of the freeways and the earthquakes, but we says, yeah, that would be wonderful to move out there.
You know, John, many people who are going to be watching this show are faced with this situation of having to downsize because the house may need repair or no more can they do the shoveling and the mowing of the lawns. So hearing your story with a happy ending will help the people that are watching today.
Right.
Don't be afraid of change, in other words, right?
Yeah.
And where do you live now?
At Laguna Woods, California, which is right in between Los Angeles and San Diego. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area.
Yes?
Yeah. So...
now, you know, I told you that when we do this show, we focus our attention on people who make contribution to their community. And while you were here in Gardner, you made many, and I would like to mention a few. And maybe you can fill us in on the details. One of the things that I remember was many years ago, I think it was in 1989, there was a list of 100 people that was selected from Gardner, and they were called Grand
Gardnerites.
Grand Gardnerites. And you had the privilege of being selected.
No, one of 100.
Talk to me about how that felt.
Well, I had been active in the Salvation Army and working with the elderly, going up to the nursing and rest homes in Gardner and the area. We used to go out to Wingeon and Ashburnham, and so somebody nominated me for working with the elderly.
What an honor.
And it was an honor because I was thrilled to be.
Now you talk about Salvation Army, and I know that was your major contribution. Right. What did you do with the Salvation Army?
Well,
what was your role?
Well, I went on as a volunteer. I heard Don Thompson, his folks were at the Baptist church here in town, but I heard him speak about the work of the Salvation Army. And I kind of got enthused. I said, gee, this would be my niche. And so I went down and saw, Bob Croto. And I said that I would like to be a volunteer for the Salvation Army. And I says, call me when you need some help. So come around Thanksgiving, he says, we're going to have a meeting. And this was with the school nurses and Reverend Hutchins up at the
St. Paul's Episcopal
Church. And I asked him, I says, what would you like me to do? And he says, my job is to find the neediest people in Gardner. So I says, boy, how am I going to do that? He said, that was my job. to find the neediest people in Gardner. So what I did was, I used to love to roam downtown Gardner. You know, see how it looked appearance-wise and meet people on the sidewalk. And so I used to ask people, did they know of anybody that could use a turkey at Thanksgiving? And people told me of others, not themselves,
Oh, I see.
of others that could use a turkey. And so I went to the meeting and I told Bob, I says, I did what you told me. I got a list, and I says, let's turn them in now. And Adda's Market was very generous to us.
Really?
And they made up the baskets, and that was, and once I did that, I just loved it, to help people.
So you're saying that there's something special about giving.
There is.
And what does it do for you?
Oh, I was on cloud nine all the time. I couldn't do enough. I loved getting the calls, going out and helping people, and especially the needy and the elderly. I mean, there's a need.
You're a practical person, John. And one of the things that I remember is that you got an award, and they called you the Graffiti Buster.
Right.
Tell the viewer what that's all about.
Well, as I used to walk downtown, I noticed the graffiti was getting out of hand. And going to work at the paper mill in Fitchburg, I used to go down by Victory Market, the underpass. And I got upset about the graffiti on those walls. And I went up and spoke to Alberta Bell at the Gardner News, and I says, the newspaper should be doing something about the graffiti in downtown Gardner. And she says, it isn't up to the newspaper. Somebody has to do something about it. And she says, I should do something about it.
Okay.
So I went down to Chair City Wallpaper and Paint and
Yes.
saw Peter Zock.
Yes.
And I told him, I says, I'm going to try to clean up the graffiti in Gardner. And I says, I need some help. So he says, I had his full support. He says, if whatever I needed, he would supply.
Oh, isn't it?
That was
So people are
fantastic.
generous. And you know what that says to me? If one person makes one step, other people will step in
Yeah.
behind you. And I think that's really wonderful. Sometimes people think that when they get to be a certain age,
Right.
they don't need to do anything anymore.
Yeah.
And that isn't so, is it?
No.
It hasn't been for you
No,
anyway.
No.
There's another involvement that I'd like you to tell the viewer about, and that was your involvement in the National Day of Prayer.
Yeah.
Describe for the viewer what that is and how you became involved in it.
Well, at the time I was going to Bethany Baptist Church, and they wanted some volunteers to work on the National Day of Prayer over at Monument Park on
Yes,
Central
yes.
and Park Street. And I says I would help, and I says, you know, I was glad to promote it. I says I'll be on the publicity committee and do whatever I can to notify the churches and the
Okay.
people of Gardner. And when Phil Wall was leaving Gardner, or Templeton, he lived in Templeton at the time, but he was a member of Bethany Baptist, and he asked me to continue it. So I would contact all the clergy in Gardner and have them put on a little program at Monument Park. And I just did that for a couple of years, and then when I left town, I asked Jim Murphy to take over, and so he's continued it for a while, and I don't know who does it now.
You have a hero, and his name is Clarence Quinby.
Yeah.
Tell me, why does he have that status with you? And tell me what you did to promote his memory.
Well, it goes back to the Salvation Army. We were doing our nursing home visits at the time with Joe Boudreau. And we met Dr. Quimby at Eastwood Pines. He was there for
A patient?
as a patient for rehab,
I see.
because he had injured his leg or knee or something, or hip. I think that's what it was, his hip. And so we toured the patients, or the residents rather, the residents at Eastwood Pines, and he was one of them. And he was so impressive that we wanted to go back and visit him often. And we became such good friends because of his vast knowledge of Gardner and the community and politics and religion and you name it, he knew it all. I mean, I'd never met anybody like Dr. Quimby.
Really?
Yeah, never in my life. I mean, he knew everything about everything, and he didn't try to persuade people about you know, how you thought. He just says, well, I hope things will straighten out, or whatever the problems
Really?
were.
Uh-huh.
He understood how people reacted and how people thought.
And then he died.
Well,
Now,
yeah.
he was the headmaster at Cushing Academy, wasn't
Yeah.
he? Yes.
Yeah.
And what did you do about that?
Well, when he died, I went down after, you know, a while. I went down to Cushing Academy and I asked them if they were going to do anything in his honor. And they says, well, they've already named the athletic field at Cushing Academy, and they placed a marker at the football field in his memory. And they says that they'll be doing a magazine article on him for their Cushing Academy, and an obituary in the magazine, and that would be it. And I says, well, how about doing something special about him? So he says, no, they would not be doing, because he says that's just not the policy at Cushing Academy, because they said they have so many former headmasters there, so they treat them all equally. So I says, well, I would like to do something, or I would like to organize a committee in his memory. So I got a hold of Claire Shirley and Bill Sargent, and we started thinking about how we could organize something. We didn't know what, but we said, let's do something in honor of Dr. Quimby. And the first idea was to name Bull Nose Park in downtown Gardner.
Okay.
That was, but then we got into a little hassle because it was Rick Rad that was at the chamber. His name was mentioned, and then Mr. Ferguson over at the bank.
Yes.
So the three of them, with Dr. Quimby, the three names
You mean
clashed.
Dr. Rajuezo? Are you talking
No.
about Dr. Rajuezo?
No, that was he was at the Chamber of Commerce at the time.
I see.
Yep. And Mr. Ferguson was at the Gardner Trust Building where Bull Nose Park is. So the three of them were close friends.
Oh.
Yeah. Nick Rajuecio was Nick at
Nick
the Chamber.
Radzowitz. Was it Radzowitz?
Right, at the
Okay.
Chamber
Now I
of
know what
Commerce.
Yes, I know.
So the three names were
Okay.
being submitted to name the park.
I see.
And then we found out that the three of them were the best of friends. We withdrew Dr. Quimby's name, and we said we'll find another
Okay.
way to honor him. And
How'd that turn out?
wonderful, because we came up with a stone
I see.
from his backyard in North Turner, Maine.
Oh, wonderful.
Right from his backyard. Yeah. I wrote
And you
to-
had it inscribed?
Yeah.
And where is it now?
up at the college, Mount Wachusett Community College.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, up on the front lawn there, in front of the physical ed complex.
Okay.
So the Rotary Club is the one that paid for the plaque.
Now you have a large family,
Yeah.
and you have, what, 3 sons and 3 daughters?
No, 2 sons and 4
2
daughters.
sons and 4 daughters, and they're scattered.
Yeah.
They're all over the place,
Right.
are they not?
Yeah, yeah.
And they've all done very well,
Yeah.
which is a tribute to you and your wife, Ellie.
Yeah.
And I know that Ellie and you took up the volunteer work when you went to California.
Yeah.
Giving didn't stop when you left New England, is that
Right.
correct?
No, right.
Yeah. Talk about your work at Mount Wachusett Community College.
Well, I was in the maintenance department there.
For
and,
a long time?
for
or-
about 12 years. And, you know, it was a job. I didn't like the hours, but it worked out because I could volunteer. You know, I used to work on the afternoon shift, and I had mornings free, and you know, I could work on the graffiti and
Sure.
and then work up at the mountain.
Well, you know, many people knowing about this show today
Yeah.
have come to me and said, oh, I'd love to see John, so I guess you left some good memories
Yeah.
there.
Well, a lot of nice people
Nice
work at the
people,
Mount.
I know it.
Yeah, a lot of nice people there.
I'd like you to recall a New England experience.
Well, the best experience is Mount Monadnock.
Okay, why
Because
is
that's
that?
why I'm here now. My son and I have been climbing Mount Wachusett, the Mount Monadnock. This was about our 15th time climbing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, ever
This
since.
is Joey?
Yeah, this is Joey, who lives at the Cape.
Mm-hmm.
Last year was the first time since we moved to California that I climbed it, and now yesterday, or Monday rather, was the you know, I came back to climb the mountain again.
And what do your knees and your legs say about
Oh yeah,
this?
well, I felt it this time. So
I wonder why.
so I told him, I says, I think we better settle for, Dunn's Park next time.
Well,
Go
that's a
around the
nice,
track, go
that's
around
really a nice tradition,
It is,
though.
yeah.
You know,
Nice to
it's
get together.
preserving something, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
What is the hardest thing that you've ever had to do?
Well, that's the loss of my wife. That I never would have thought it would be so hard. Because my wife was, a very special person to me. And losing her, I was down and out.
Now, how long ago was that?
That's about 1.5 years ago.
Will you tell people who are watching about losing a spouse, somebody that you've spent a whole lifetime with, that it is difficult, but is it getting better?
Oh yeah, it is getting better.
So it does get better?
Yeah, but I went to the grief support group for 6 months. We had a program at Leisure World where I live that had about 200 people come, and we had a professor from the college come and speak to us, and he mentioned how it does take time. A lot of time.
Yes.
It's not a quick solution.
Right.
So after that meeting, I knew I needed help.
You know, John, when we look at mountains like Mount Monadnock and we see how mountains are etched by storms, so are human beings. We're etched by the storms in our lives, too.
Yeah.
And that gives character.
Sure.
What gives you pleasure?
Well, being close to the Lord, being close to God is probably the best.
How does that help you?
Well, it gives me a lot of peace.
Okay.
A lot of peace, and my wife was very close to God, and she trusted Him for every. She prayed for all our decisions.
Yes.
Moving to California, moving for her the right doctor that she had to go to. So we were kind of just led. The doors would open. People would be more than willing to help.
Well, you know, the medical profession now is realizing that people who have a relationship with a higher being heal better and seem to go through operations better. So there is something to that, isn't there?
I definitely believe that.
I know that you have had the privilege of meeting some celebrities.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Well, Jimmy Stewart would be number one. Meeting him and his wife Gloria and being invited to their home. I mean, that was really special. We went down to his home in Beverly Hills, Roxbury Drive, and to cut back a little back, my kids had arranged for me to meet him at a Jimmy Stewart marathon at Griffith Park. And that day that we went to California, we went out for my daughter's wedding. And my wife said that, it wasn't appropriate for me to go to Griffith Park on our daughter's wedding day. So she talked me out of it. And my kids went to his house and told him that I couldn't go to Griffith Park because of the wedding. And so he says, well, if it was possible for me to stop by the house. So we went to the house, and I had some autographs to sign for Jim Murphy and his family.
Yes.
And we left those with the maid, because she says he was ill that day. And he wasn't, we couldn't see him. So we left the things to be autographed with the maid, and when we went back, the maid didn't know where they were. So she called Mrs. Stewart to the door, and she came out. And I says, we want to come back to pick up the autographs, because we were heading back to Boston. And she says if we came back the following day, we would meet him.
Oh.
And so that was just wonderful to spend a half hour in his backyard.
Imagine.
With all his roses. Jeez, I was
can't
on
even
cloud
believe
nine.
Now, a lot of us have heard of Tommy Toon.
Yeah.
And you've had quite an involvement with Tommy Toon.
Yeah, he's family.
Explain who he is.
Well,
and
Tommy has become family because our son is his personal secretary, personal assistant. And he answers all his messages, all
who
his
is
phone
Tommy Toon?
Tommy Toon is a singer, dancer, very, very professional. I mean, he's 9-time Tony Award winner.
Oh.
And he is fantastic. And I've met him, at his home, at his penthouse, and he's super there. He treats us like family, and I've watched his shows. I've gone to many places to see him perform, and always get a good seat. And I've been able to invite friends when he performs, and so it's very, very touching to be a part of his, like a family member.
You seem to be in the right place at the right time. Talk about Peter Falk.
Yeah, well, Tommy Toome was invited to the Pageant of the Masters at Laguna Beach, and Peter Falk was also invited, and so it was great to rub elbows with Peter Falk.
Are they any different from us?
No, they are no different. No different at all. They're all down to earth. Yeah, they're very sociable people, and
there's one more celebrity. Now, hitting the charts right now is a book called The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren.
Yeah.
Tell us of your association with this man.
Well, I'm a member of Saddleback Church, and when we first moved out to Leisure World, we were kind of looking for a church, and somebody recommended that we try that, Saddleback Church. And so we went out there during the week to see where it was, so that on Sunday I wouldn't get lost out there, because it's in Lake Forest, and it's 8 miles from Leisure World. And so Sunday came, we went out there, and I've been there ever since.
Now, he is
the pastor. He's the senior pastor. He is the senior pastor of Saddleback Church, and a wonderful, wonderful speaker.
Imagine.
And he's written several books.
You've had a colorful life.
Really. But
now, I know that you live near where the landslides were. You told me that you were about 10 miles from the landslides. Yeah. If a landslide should happen in your area, and you had the opportunity to run back into your house to get one thing or something, and your family and your pets were all safe, what would you pick?
Well, that would have to be the photo, the pictures that we get scattered around, or the albums, depending on how much room I had to take.
So that's
But yeah, I'd
precious.
say the pictures are the most precious. You know, I keep my file handy in case I got an earthquake.
Oh my!
You know, I mean, important papers ready, but the pictures would be number one.
I see.
Photo albums. And photos.
I talked to you on the telephone, and you said to me, "I live in paradise." Explain that.
Well, it really is, because it's like the middle of July year round. The weather is fantastic. We do have a little smog, I got to admit that. And the earthquake, the freeway's not that great to, at the rush hours, and but considering Leisure World is 55 and over, and it's peace and quiet, and beautiful flowers. I mean, they go all out. Yeah. So
everywhere. 5 Olympic pools.
Yeah.
And what's the population there?
18,000 residents.
So it's your own little town.
Yeah, it is a little town. Yeah.
And
we have our mayor, and we have a city council,
yes.
and we have our own post office. When we moved out there, we were part of Laguna Hills, but then they decided that we should become a separate community.
I see.
And so.
There are people watching us right now, and I can just see the man in the marriage poking the spouse and saying, "Listen to him. No more shoveling.
Yeah.
No more climbing on the roof."
Yeah, it's
and
great.
That's what it's
yeah,
like,
it's
isn't it?
We didn't bring any shovels out there.
No. If you were given the opportunity to go worldwide in a media message, and you were given only 5 minutes, what would your message be to the world?
Well, that would have to be to trust God, because that has been our strength, and trusting God has meant a lot to my wife and I and our kids, because now I see them doing the same thing my wife did. They pray about traveling, about making decisions, about all the problems they go through. Mm-hmm. It's trusting God. That would be number one. So.
Well, I want to thank you very much, John, for sharing your life and all the things that you've done, all the things you've seen with the viewing audience. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Lorraine, for inviting me, and it was an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for watching Senior Moments. Today our guest was John Glebaucis. I hope you join us next time. I'm Lorraine Wickman for Senior Moments. Bye.